Hey everybody, Justin with EBR, and today we're going to be reviewing the Aventon Abound SR. It's a new short tail utility cargo bike from Aventon. And in this review, we're going to be covering kind of our standard review, everything on the bike, but we're also going to be talking about a new trend that we're seeing in the e-bike space. And in Aventon's case, it's their Aventon Control Unit, or ACU. Now, the ACU provides programming that gives you a lockable kickstand, a lockable battery, and even includes a 4G wireless chip that enables you to set up geofencing and track the bike in case it gets stolen. So we have a lot to get into. Let's dive right in. Okay, so let's start off with an overview of the bike. The Abound SR comes in with an MSRP of $2,199, so just under $2,200. It is a short tail cargo / utility bike, like I mentioned, and it's shipped as a Class 2 e-bike. So that means out of the box, it's shipped with a throttle up to 20 miles per hour, pedal assist up to 20. You can go into the settings and kind of turn it into a modified Class 3 and push that PAS setting up to 25 miles per hour. Now, a couple people have already had a question of like, why 25 miles per hour? And the reality is not every state follows the model legislation that people for bikes. That's the one that we really like. So they don't follow that model legislation. New York, Massachusetts are two, where they define an e-bike as electrical assist up to 25 miles per hour. So Aventon has shipped this max 25 when you go and unlock it, just to make sure that it does follow kind of all those laws. There are 3 different color options with this. You have this stealth black, you have a cobalt blue, and you have the purple haze. I requested a purple haze because that was my favorite color actually from the launch event, but that's okay. I won't hold it against them. All 3 colors are really nice. I really do like them. And the bike is UL certified, so 2849 and 2271. Okay, moving on. The Abound SR has a 440 pound weight capacity. It is 80.2 pounds with the battery in. If you pop the battery out, you do lose 8.6 pounds, so it drops it down to about 74 pounds total. The Aventon kind of calls this a one-size-fits-most bike. So they have it to where the fit, where their recommended fit is 4'11" to 6'3". Now, how they come up with that? You have a minimum seat post insertion of 33 inches. Now, this is the max right here, what you see, which is 38.25. And if you kind of turn the crank all the way around here, the bottom of that pedal is just over 6 inches. And so that gives you between a 26, 27 inch inseam length on the low end up to about 32 1/3, 32 1/2 on the high end. So I will say if you're over 6 foot, over 6'1" and have longer than a 32 inch inseam, you're not gonna quite get full leg extension. We'll talk more about that in the ride quality section. To kind of round this out, the wheelbase is 45 inches, the reach is 17 inches. So that wheelbase being 45 inches, it's about 5 inches shorter than the original Abound. That's their longer tail version, hence, you know, the short rack or short tail version on this one here. Then you'll notice you do have, in terms of mounting points, you got the rear rack, you've got mounting points along that for a child seat, seated pad, some other cool accessories that they have. You've got mounting points on the down tube, mounting points up front for a front rack as well. And then to finish it off, you do have the light up front, and then you have a nice brake light with turn signals on the back. All right, let's dive into the heart and soul of the bike. So the motor, battery, the controller. The motor is a rear hub 750 watt motor. It peaks at 950 watts and it is a 36 volt system. The sensor, it is a torque sensor that is nice and sensitive. We're going to go over how that performs in the ride quality. And then the battery is UL certified to 2271. It is a 20 amp hour, 36 volt, 708 watt hour capacity battery. Now, we have not been able to do the range test yet. That is because one of the cool things is all of that, kind of the programming, how everything works, can be updated over the air. And given this is a pre-launch bike, Aventon was still kind of working on the program, and we've actually worked with them the last 2 weeks quite a bit on tuning the motor and the feel and the output. And so we have not finished our range test yet. That being said, Aventon claims about 60 miles on min. I have a feeling, and you can check me on this, we'll update it when we get it done. I have a feeling that's going to be pretty close to what it is. Now, there's one other really cool feature of the bike that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to have Jaden come in here, and we're going to show you how the battery is actually removable, because if you notice looking at the bike, you don't really see the battery much. So come on in, and I'm going to show you pop this out. Okay, so the battery is located here in this down tube, very sleek, very nice looking. You can tell there's something in there with this plastic covering, but to get it out, like our mechanic Ben, for the first little while, he was trying to figure it out, and he didn't realize that there's an app. So on the app, you come in and you hit on the main page when you're connected to the bike, you hit this little percentage which shows the battery, and there's a battery lock, and you just hit open, unlock, and it pops out. So super cool how that pops out. And I will say the battery has just a really good high quality feel to it. And I just love that feature on that battery. Just adds a little bit of safety and security. You know, if you're worried about your bike getting stolen, and they're not gonna be able to come take this battery unless they've got access to your app. So overall, in general, I am very impressed with the system. Again, we'll talk about the 36 volt versus 48 volt performance in the ride quality, but I love the technology built in, the safety, the security that Aventon has programmed in with that removable, lockable battery. All right, moving on to the components. Aventon spec'd this with the Shimano Altus 8-speed cassette and derailleur. Now, the rear cassette is 12 by 32 and the front cassette is a 52 tooth chainring. The brakes are Tektro HD E3520s. They're dual piston hydraulic disc brakes with 180 mil by 1.8 millimeter rotors. Moving up on the seat post. Now there's some cool things on here. So I'll have you come kind of move and come take a look here. There is 50 mil of travel on that seat post. So you see, and you can actually get it almost, I mean, you could if you were bigger than me. So you got 50 mil of travel. The total seat post length, if you pull this out, is 325 mils. You'll see the minimum insertion point there. Do not go above that. Aventon has reinforced the seat post tube to really be incredibly sturdy and strong. But again, follow the rules there. If you want something a little bit taller, I would recommend looking at a 400 mil seat post. You do have length there. I have tested that. So if you're again 6'3", 6'4", and want something a little bit longer, you can do that. Now moving up, you have a mechanical suspension front fork with lockout on the right side and a little bit of preload adjustment on the left here. You can see if I lock this out, nothing there. And then you can unlock it and get some travel there. I will say it's a little stiffer. We're going to talk about that on the ride quality, what I think about that. Short answer, I really do like that. Next, moving on to the cockpit. So let's have you come up here for that. All right, moving up into the cockpit. I'm going to start with the handlebars. You'll notice there are these BMX style riser bars, and that is my personal favorite. They actually talked to us before they came out with this, and this is what we told them. We're not the only ones. We can't take credit, but they just give a really nice ride quality to them. It's paired with a adjustable quill stem that can be raised 5.25 inches. This is as high as you can raise it. And it's just, if you want your hands a little bit higher, that's how you do so. If you want to lower, you can lower it down. So it does make this a very comfortable bike from the handlebar stem standpoint for a lot of different riders. Moving on, you have rubber ergonomic grips, a push throttle on the left, which that's where I like it. This is the style of throttle that I like for a bike like this, where I'm gonna pedal probably more than throttle. So I do like a push throttle. You have the Tektro brake levers that I find to be very comfortable. They have good bite. I usually use 3 or 2 fingers on these ones. You have their minimalist but feature-rich display here. And then on the right side is where you have your rapid underfire shifters, the Shimano shifters there, which are really nice. And then to kind of round out the cockpit, and keeping with that theme of just clean and again, just very nice looking, you have their cable management, which you've got a lot going on. You've got 3 cables here, you've got 3 over here, but it all wraps nicely. and goes into this down tube, very crisp, very clean. If you do need to access this, you know, for mechanic to get to things, you can unwrap it. And again, just overall, the look, the feel of this cockpit, I like how simple it is, but functional, and just really is one of my favorite cockpit setups for a cargo utility bike. Okay, so this is the Aventon Abound SR display. You'll notice it's kind of a small minimalist display, but there's a lot packed in here. And first thing that I want to mention, this design of the buttons, they wanted you to have a good tactile feel, but they also kind of modeled this after the original iPod design. And so there's, again, a lot of functionality in a small space, full color display. So there's a lot of things that I like. So first off, kind of the functionality here on the left, the on-off buttons in the middle. And if you hit the middle, it will scroll through the different screen settings. The screen settings, you'll see here, you have miles per hour, you have eco, sport, turbo there on the bottom right. The top left, you have the time. So you have the clock, you have, it tells you if you're connected to the app or if it's also tracking your location and you're connected to Wi-Fi with that 4G wireless chip. The top right, you have the battery readout both in bars and in percentage. Again, I'm always a big fan of percentage. And then these bars here, as you ride, they start to kind of highlight up. And there's not a wattage output here, but it kind of correlates with your watt output. As you scroll to the next screen, this is your trip, so 18.9 miles, the total time, 1 hour 21. Average speed on that last trip was 13.9 miles per hour. Max speed says 37.3. It was down a hill on the hill test. The odometer, so we've got 85.8 miles on this so far, total of 6 hours and 47 minutes. And so you can, the total average speed, 12.7 miles per hour, the range, 19 miles per hour. So it does actually show a lot of things as you scroll through those different screens. Other things to point out back to these settings here, to go up and down on your PAS levels, it's just the up and down, so very intuitive. You have the left turn signal and the right turn signal. To turn those on, you push in, turns it on. You'll see the little indicator there that it's on. Click it off, and that turns it off. You do have to do that yourself. It's not like a car where once you complete the turn, it turns off. Just remember that. And then if you want the lights on, you just hold the up button and that turns the light on. You'll notice it also dims the screen a little bit, kind of assuming that you're out, you know, later at night on that. And then to turn it off, hold that down. And then down below, if you hold this down, it's a walk setting mode. So again, just in general, I do really like the feel of this. If you notice, I can easily reach it and I don't get it confused with the throttle. And so it just makes it, again, easier to operate without having me make a mistake and accidentally hit that throttle. But I also just kind of intuitively know what to hit and where. So I do think, I know they spent a lot of time on this design, and I think that time was warranted and that they have done a really good job. All right, so this is the Aventon app with the Abound SR. You notice I've named the bike Abound SR. You name it whatever you want. It has a picture of the bike and gives some really good information about the bike. Gives you the riding time, the odometer, and then you see here that you can power the bike on and off. You can lock it and unlock it. So if I lock it, you'll hear it lock the battery in place, locks the kickstand so you can't move the bike. I can unlock it. I can turn the light on and off within the app. And when I go into more settings here, you have screen brightness. I always recommend leaving it at 5. The auto power off, so if the bike's just sitting there for, 99 minutes down to 1 minute, I usually put it about 15 or 20, just for me personally. You can turn that off entirely if you would like. Here's the assistance level. So right now it's not anything. I can turn it to eco. What's one thing that I really think is cool is this ride tune functionality. So you can come in here and you can see with an eco, sport, and turbo, the max torque, what it's set at, what's the assistance, what the pedal response is. And what I have found is I actually don't mind kind of what's out of the box here. We have played around with this quite a bit. And on turbo mode, I have liked the assistance at 100%, the pedal response at 100%, but I can come in here and I can change the max torque on eco down to 20, up to 80. I can do that on sport. I can do that on turbo. I can, within that, change, again, how much assistance there is. And it just changes that curve quite a bit. I like to kind of boost it just a little bit maybe on eco, but it's all, again, that's just going to be dependent on yourself 100%. Then the pedal responsiveness chart, you see in eco it's at 40, sport it's at 40, turbo it's at 100 right now. I do like it at 100. I've had a couple people prefer it right around 80 on that. I just myself like as much responsiveness as possible there. And then you can apply it to the bike or save that to the cloud and kind of back up your settings so you can kind of remember what you had. You can also do a factory reset there. So I really like how they have, I'm just going to discard this. I really like how they have that ride tune feature there to where you can really customize the feel of this bike for yourself. Next is the speed limit and metric. So miles per hour or kilometers per hour, you'll notice the max is 25. It won't let you go beyond that, but you can tune it down. So if you have, let's say, you want to send your 16 or 17-year-old out on this and you don't trust them and you want to go down to 15 miles per hour, you totally can do that and adjust that speed limit. Again, for me, I like it set to 25. You notice once I go past 20, it does give you the warning that changing your bike to class 3 may violate local law. So where I'm at, it's totally fine. So I'll accept that and go up to 25. And then that, again, it kind of just automatically pairs to the bike, which is really nice. You have the alarm, you can toggle on or off. If it's on and you move this thing, it will set off the alarm. It's not crazy loud, but it will set it off. You can set it up to lock automatically when you power it off. So when I turn it off, it locks the kickstand, locks the battery, and it's, again, just locked in place there. I keep that off. Our situation is a little bit different, passing around the bike to different people. Security verification. This where every several days it'll ask you basically to verify that that you are the official user of the bike. You can set it to 30 days, you can set it to 5. I usually have this off myself. And then if the bike gets lost, you can activate it in lost mode. The unusual activity detection. So this, if you turn on notifications, it'll send you a note. It'll send you a notification if somebody bumps your bike, if they move the bike, and you can change the sensitivity from low to mid to high. That's, again, play around it with yourself and find out what setting you like if you want to use that. Again, I don't use it because I've got so many different people jumping on the bike. Here's where you clear your bike password. And then another really cool feature of that ACU is the geofencing. So the geofencing, I've deleted out all the geofences. What this does is if you go and you can add an area where the bike is allowed to ride in. So how to use this is a little bit different. You can name the zone you want here. And to set the area, you zoom in, zoom out. So if I zoom out and change it here, you'll notice the area got bigger. So I'm going to try to cover up kind of most of St. George and down into that top part of Arizona there. You'll notice you have to kind of zoom out and adjust where you're at for it to capture. So that's too much. So I'm going to move it down. Move it over. Let's go a little bit this way. And there we go. So for me, if I want to set it up to where I can only, someone can only ride this in St. George and Hurricane, if someone takes it out of this, it's going to automatically shut down the bike. So it creates that geofence for security purposes. If somebody tries to, they're driving through St. George on the way to Vegas and they want to steal the bike and sell it in Vegas, it's going to stop working once they kind of hit that Arizona-Utah border. So really cool feature that Aventon's added there with the geofencing. Next ones are kind of just some standard update firmware. This is the latest firmware, so I don't have to update it again. You can back up and restore your settings. You can look at the IoT service details. This is more likely what you're going to use if you're calling in for some type of, tech support. And then you have transport mode, which again will kind of shut down the bike. To start it, you just push the power button to get it back up and going. Now back to the main screen. It shows the battery percentage. This is where if you want to take the battery out, you go to the battery lock, you hit open, unlock, and it kicks the battery out, right? Now you notice I'm not connected to the bike anymore, so I'm going to put the battery back in. and go back and turn it on and connect back to the bike. So love that functionality, that battery lock. Again, just makes it safe, makes it secure. Down below you have the map of kind of where you're at. So that's your location. It gives some details, the max speed, the average speed, the total calories burned, the total carbon reduced. I don't know how they calculate the carbon reduced. It's probably just a formula based on how many miles you go. Kind of cool just to see. And then service down below, you have the dealers. You can look up maintenance, diagnostics. So maintenance, you come in here and you can start kind of keeping track of your service that you've done. Obviously, I haven't said any of that. Have done any of that yet, or recorded at least. We'd have Ben go through the bike, obviously. You can have diagnostics, which is really cool. Start takes 3 to 5 minutes. It'll kind of go through the different systems if you're having an issue, which it's kind of cool that you can do that on your own. And then support, when you click on help, it actually takes you to Aventon's help center. So you can kind of find some things, you can chat with them. So just overall in general, I really do like this trend of the tech that they're building into these bikes. And frankly, I think this is just the beginning. When Aventon launched the bike, they really did indicate that because they can do the OTA updates, the over-the-air updates, that there's more to come. They can continue to tweak things, improve things, and just make it better in general. And I'm really excited for that. Okay, let's go on a ride with the Aventon Abound SR. Again, my goal here is to kind of give you a good idea of what the bike feels like when riding. And we're going to start off with the motor. So I've got this set in class 2. We're going to see how punchy this, again, this 36 volt system is, kind of with a drag race. 0 to 20, see how fast it goes. So let's do it. So 5, 9, 12 miles an hour, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So really fast there. Did really well. And that was an eco. Let's do this in turbo. I don't think it's going to change though. Let's do it. 2, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 19, 20. Yeah, feels about the same when you're using the throttle. And also stopped really well. So now we're going to do the pedaling. Again, this is set in class 2. See how long it takes here. This torque sensor, 10, 15, 18, 20. Whoa, very responsive on that one. And so I'm actually not even going to put it in class 3 because it's going to be probably about the same with turbo, given the settings, and this is a class 2 trail. But you saw kind of how punchy that was and how fast it got up to 20. So first question in terms of that 36 volt system is it punchy? Is it powerful? And yeah, it did not feel out of control. And the brakes felt really good too when I was braking. So felt really good. So I'm going to kick this down to eco. You'll notice as I'm going here on the path, it's getting a little busy here. One thing I'm going to just make a quick comment on is there's not a bell on this bike. Kind of wish it was. How's it going? Hey. And so again, didn't have to pass anybody there, didn't need the bell there, but any kind of city commuter, I'd recommend getting the bell. Back to the motor, sorry for that tangent. So I'm in eco, in 8th gear, and flat ground feels pretty natural, right about 15 miles an hour. I can kick it up if I want. Again, it's a torque sensor, so it does amplify what I put into it. But if I want to just casually cruise, about 15, 16-ish, it's kind of where I'm at. And maybe 7th gear if I want to pedal lighter, but 8th is pretty fine. Again, I'm flat, kicking it up to sport. I can feel that extra power. It gets me 17, 18. And then up in turbo, when I'm not having to pedal too hard to get it up to 20 there. I'm going to kick it into class 3 mode just really quick here. Just so you can get an idea of what that feels like. Okay, so we're in class 3. Just gonna kind of see how long it takes to get up to 25. And 22, 3, 4, 5. So really fast on that. How's it going? Love how this trail just keeps getting used more and more by cyclists. But as far as in turbo in class 3 mode, if I want to keep it around 19-20 and kind of soft pedal, if I give it a little bit more, that's where it's kind of getting me that 23, 24. And if I want to get to 25, I do got to push just a little bit more. So I'm going to tone this back down, keep my speeds under 20 here. But I will say from a motor perspective and that torque sensor, it feels very natural, very responsive, and nice and powerful. Do another quick brake test here. Get this up. Nice and controlled. Again, those Tektro brakes, good quality brakes, 180 mil by 1.8 mil rotors, 2 pistons. I would say I think they could go to a 4-piston brake. If you really load this thing up with 100 pounds of cargo, it's gonna slow you down braking. So just note that and get used to it. And that's where I think the 4-piston brakes would help, or maybe going to like a 2.3-inch rotor. But as is, I do feel comfortable on the brakes. I think it's really good. Moving through the shifting now. So I'm gonna go down and turn this off. So it's off now. So I'm pedaling, again, kind of like flat, maybe even a slight downhill, 14 miles an hour. And I find myself wanting to go to about 6th gear here. And it does pedal nicely, even without power. The shifting's good. Again, Shimano, you know, if it gets off, you can always adjust it. But I do like these the shifters. The front, you can pull from the front. Your front finger, your index finger, push from your thumb. This makes it nice and natural. Kicking up in the eco. And let me get down that hill. I generally find an eco, the chill gear is about 6th gear, sport, kick it up to 7th. And then in turbo, I'm almost exclusively kind of in 8th gear, unless I'm going up kind of a really steep hill with that. And then, so as far as the handling goes, something that I forgot to mention before that I want to mention now is this frame is ultra stiff. So they did a gravity cast aluminum frame and really worked on the design there to build in structural integrity. That seat post tube is a double walled seat post tube, and it just makes that extra rigid. And then the front, the suspension fork is also, you know, it's 50 mil travel, not a ton of travel, and it's a little bit on the stiff side, which I think is great for utility. I can take it off the road here and it's okay. So if I'm, if I'm wanting to take this, it's my only bike and I gotta, I want to go to like a campground and, ride on some, dirt path, you'll be okay. It's not what this is built for, but it does soak up those bumps. But the suspension being a little stiffer also makes it so when you load this down, it's not going to feel wobbly or divey. Very important from a handling perspective. And then if you're really weighed down, you can lock it out and keep that front rigid, and those 20 by 3-inch tires will kind of help soak up some of the bumps for you there. But the frame, the suspension, all those things give this just a really nice sporty feel, especially when you pair that with these BMX riser bars. So again, I'm a big fan of that, and think that Aventon has done just a really good job on that side of things. Okay, now given that a lot of people can use this as a commuter, I wanted to jump on here again, just really fast. Got to set to class 2. I'm going to change it to class 3 while I'm riding. Again, I love that I can do that while I'm riding. It's kind of cool. So now I'm a little faster, which I think is needed when you're commuting. So I like the fact that it can go 25 miles per hour. Also really like, as I mentioned, these turn signals. So if I'm here and I am riding on the road, and I'm going 23, 24, there's a slight uphill here. It's got decent speed. I'm not gonna go through the roundabout up here just because some of these drivers kind of are horrible. There's not great cycling infrastructure, but I love how I have these turn signals, so I can click on that turn signal. I'm still going to use my hands and indicate to people so they know what's going on. And then after I turn, again, you do have to turn that turn signal off there, but it does function nicely as a commuter because it does get up a little faster. If you're in a place where it doesn't have the fantastic infrastructure and you need to go a little faster to be safer on cars, the turn signals, the lights. The light, I would definitely say, is more to be seen versus you see things. So if you're riding at night, I do recommend a little better light. But other than that, it's pretty much good to go as a commuter, kind of right out of the gate with that. You see, I'm keep using these turn signals. So the more you use them, the more you get used to it. And you don't have to look down and just go with it, which I like. The last section, the last thing that I really want to do is kind of take this up a hill so we can really talk about that motor. So I'll head over to this nice little steep hill we got over here and pick it up there. Okay, so just across this bridge, when I turn right, there's a hill that's about an 8% grade. And so we're going to see how this, you know, the motor does going up there. That 80 newton meters of torque, 36 volt system. We'll see how it does. So I'm in turbo. I'm starting off, I'll start in 7th gear. We'll just kind of see how we go. So I'm going about 18, 19 miles per hour right now. 19, I'm not gonna push too hard. I'm gonna let the bike do it, do most of the work, but again, it is a torque sensor. So 15, 16, downshift. So I had pretty much no problem climbing that thing. Kind of, you know, got down to about 15 miles an hour, downshifted twice was all. Did not have to push very hard. I've taken it up steeper hills. And yeah, on the previous programming, it wasn't as great. So you might see some other reviewers kind of mention that. I'm not sure. I don't know how much they played around with the programming like we have. But now where the programming's at, where Aventon's kind of pushed through that update, really happy with the motor. And just the overall punchy feeling of it feels great to me. If you know, are 20, 30, 40 pounds more than me, yeah, you're gonna get a little bit slower times. If you load this up, obviously you're gonna get slower times, but it's great on throttle. It's been really good when I've been pedaling. Just overall has a great feel to it. All right, so kind of bottom line for me is I'm a pretty big fan of this bike so far. I could see it being a bike that I put in my garage for a while. And I like the fact that Aventon has added this to the lineup to go alongside their original Abound. You know, for me, everybody's use case is gonna be a little bit different, but I only have one child that I'd probably put on an e-bike at this point, my 7-year-old. And so this is perfect. I could throw him on, cruise down, you know, get an ice cream cone with him, ride around on these trails and just have a ton of fun. I like the sporty handling of the bike, and I do like the peppy flow of the motor. It feels a little bit more like a mid-drive motor, to where if I want to get some fitness pedaling in, put it down in eco and I can get a good ride in. If I want to be a little more relaxed, put it to turbo. Want to commute to work and get there quicker, unlock it to 25 and just go have fun. I think from like my wife, why she would like this bike, again, she can throw her 7-year-old on. With that shorter wheelbase, that 45-inch wheelbase, knocking 5 inches off the original Abound would be nice. Again, if you only have one kid, 2 kids is a different scenario, but it just makes it a little easier for her to handle. And the motor and the torque sensor sensitivity level on there, and I can even tune this down, is just nice and controlled. So I think they've done a really good job, and I think it's going to appeal to quite a few people. I really like this frame stiffness, the overall setup of the bike. A couple things again that I think they can improve on would be that seat post. If you're over 6'2", I think, yeah, you'll be, and unless you have shorter legs, but if you're over 6'2" on average, you're probably going to want to throw in a longer seat post there. And the 2-piston brakes, the braking performance is good, but I do think they could even improve it a little bit more by adding a 4-piston brake and going to a thicker rotor. So, but other than that, really, Aventon has done a good job. We got to give them 2 thumbs up, and I think, I think this is going to be a pretty solid bike for their lineup. And overall, I give it 2 thumbs up. So that being said, let's head back and wrap up this review. All right, now for my favorite time, Ben's thoughts as our head mechanic here at EBR. Again, he's been turning wrenches for a very long time, so we're going to ask Ben to give us a take on the Aventon Abound SR from a mechanic standpoint. Now, before I do that, again, just want to give a big shout out and a big thanks to Feedback Sports, one of our sponsors. This HD Pro mechanic bike stand is just fantastic. This is a pretty beefy, utility cargo bike, and you can see it is just like a rock. And if you are someone that is looking to buy a bike like this would definitely be our top recommendation. So again, I'll get out of the way now. Ben, take it away and tell us what you found and what you thought about the Aventon Abound SR.
All right, thanks, Justin. I do like a lot about this bike in particular. We'll start first about the charger. Okay, why would anybody like one charger versus another one? Well, this one comes with a 4-amp charger. What that means to you is just a faster charge time, so you don't have to sit around and wait between bike rides or worry about it taking too long if you've got a scheduled ride. 4-amp charger, way to go. I'll talk about the front end stiffness on this bike, and there's a couple points to touch on. First off, the through axle for the wheel and fork. I always like that. It just makes a really strong feel at the wheel where sometimes you can get some flex, especially with weight on the back end. So you've got a through axle. On a bike like this, sometimes I'm not a big fan of a suspension fork. However, with this one in particular, it's a very short travel and a very big diameter for the sliders here. What does that mean? That just means, again, like the through axle, there's just a lot of stiffness on the front end, especially a bike like this. When you get weight on the back end, or maybe you're just a little bit bigger rider, it just feels really solid. And this thing rode great. Okay, so then you've got those 2 pieces to the puzzle. Now we'll talk about the stem. This is what's referred to as a quill stem. So it sticks down into the frame and then fastens through this 6mm bolt at the top. Traditionally, I'm not a big fan of quill stems. However, the diameter of this one, and then again with the fork and the through axle, the front end just feels great. Again, with a load on there, man, this bike rides awesome. With that quill stem, you can see that it's got graduated height marks too. So if in any case you borrow the bike to your friend, or maybe somebody that's shorter, maybe somebody that's taller, you just have to remember where you had it set and then easily and quickly loosen the 6mm bolt, adjust it where you want it, boom, good to go, out the door, on the road. Super nice. This frame features something I've never seen before. It's a cast frame. What that means is there are fewer welds. If there are fewer welds, there's a higher strength for the frame. So I can't really say that I've ridden a cast frame before, but there was something just about the way this bike felt, and I'm going to attribute it to that cast frame. It just felt really nice, and it looks great too. No welds to look at that they've buttered over or tried to file down. Even when there are welded points, they've done a great job finishing it. So man, this thing just looks sleek. And to me, if it looks good, it's gonna ride good, usually. All right, I do like the suspension seat post. This one is really nice. It's only got about an inch worth of movement, maybe 30mm, something like that. But what we've found is removing the seat post, on the bottom end, there's a 5mm bolt. Why is that there? Okay, just like your fork where you can adjust the spring rate, the seat post, the suspension seat post rather, you can make it more firm or softer depending on your preferred riding style, or maybe just your body weight. You can crank it up for stiffer feel or soften it if you just want more squish right there. So if you're gonna have a suspension seat post, make it adjustable. These guys did it. I think that's awesome. On this bike, to accommodate a little bit heavier bike frame, and for sure once you get a load on here, these are nice high volume tires. Now when I say high volume, that basically just means that they're wider and taller. It's a 20 by 3.0. So you can lower the pressure, raise the pressure, but a higher volume just rides smoother. It's just to me, it's a great way to go on a cargo bike like this. We'll go with the chainring. This is a nice aluminum two-piece chainring. I mentioned it on other reviews before. This just makes it stiffer and for sure easier to replace if and when it wears out or gets banged up. It's going to be tough to bang this one up because it also has really nice chainring guards on both sides of it. So again, Aventon, great job on that. That's a really nice touch. I'll move back to the front of the bike again. I really like how this bike will ride. And when I say that, just that you can leave your hands on the bars and not have to remove your index fingers or your thumbs to shift or use the throttle. It's just right exactly where your hands are naturally. Shift, throttle, brakes, it's just all right there. So I really like the way this front end ties the entire bike together.
Awesome, thanks. Now, what are some of the things that you think Aventon could improve kind of on the next iteration of this bike?
Great question. You know, because there is so much to like, I'm being kind of picky, but this one, in my opinion, is a big deal as a mechanic. Because it's got a quill stem, that means you need to have headset wrenches to add preload to the bearing, or even to remove the fork, to replace the fork, something like that. I believe these are 48 millimeter wrench fittings. That's a really big wrench. I don't know that I've even ever really used a 40 millimeter. So with this as a 48, it seems like as much steel production as there is in China or any of the Asian factories, they could just make a little cookie cutter, boom, slap it down on a big thick sheet of steel and make a wrench that you can adjust this. Are most home mechanics going to want to do that? Probably not. But if you take it to a bike shop where they then don't have that tool, if you had it supplied with the bike, it might just make it easier. I think that would be a nice touch to add on to this. I would really like to see aluminum pedals, or suggest perhaps that Aventon consider them on this bike. It's a cargo bike. It's carrying more weight. If it does tip over, which is unlikely because it's also got a really great kickstand, if it had aluminum pedals, there's a lot less chance that these are going to break and then need to be replaced. So I would go with some aluminum pedals on this. The design is great, but the material is not quite where it could be. Here we are on a cargo bike, so you're going to put some weight on the back. All right, it accelerates great, feels awesome, but then with the brakes, I think on a bike like this, a 4-piston brake caliper would really suit this build nicely. And what will that do for you? It just means that your stopping is going to be really powerful and super easy to control. So you can slow down with weight on the back and not feel as though you just don't have enough brake strength. So on this bike, 4-piston calipers, or even just a thicker rotor would really be a good idea. That's really all I can pick on with this bike.
Awesome. As always, Ben, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I will say I'm really glad that Aventon added a short tail utility cargo to their lineup. They really didn't have that before. They've got about everything else. They've got commuters, they've got kind of Dutch style, they've got the 26-inch fat tire, they've got the folding fat tire, they've got the electric mountain bike, they had the original Abound, the long tail cargo, but they did not have a short tail utility. And I think this bike is a really good fit for people who are looking to carry just one child on it, or maybe you don't have kids and you just want a good commuter bike that's 5 inches shorter on the wheelbase, but you can still load it up with cargo on your way home from work and bring home groceries, etc., and still have that fun, sporty, fast kind of feel to it. And so it really is a great utility do-it-all bike. There's a couple small things that I think Aventon can kind of work on, namely the seat post. Again, frankly I think they could have possibly just use the original Abound seat post. When you put that in, you get an extra 2 or 3 inches of leg extension. But that really only applies if you're over 6'2", 6'3". Everyone else, you're going to feel very comfortable and really like this bike. So with that being said, I hope this review was helpful. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. There will also be a link to the full in-depth review with some photos. It'll have our video embedded there as well. And you can also leave comments there or in the forum. And finally, you'll also have a link where you can go buy the Abound. Again, it just launched today. If you're watching this the first day that the video launched. So please, that is how you can help support EBR, by using our links. It's how companies know that we sent you there. And with that being said, again, I hope this was very helpful and I hope to see you out on the trail soon.